Welcome, everybody. It is day 4 of our Ketchum in Cannes series of short videos. And I am here today with Tamara Norman, the US CEO.
That's right.
President
Ketchum.
and CEO?
US CEO of Ketchum.
Of Ketchum. And we're going to be talking a little bit. Day 4 is the morning after the night before, when the PR Lions were awarded. And we are going to be talking a little bit about the work that won.
Yes.
What you particularly liked, and maybe a little bit more about the sort of culture of creativity that is necessary to get to that point.
Yeah.
But tell me, first of all, what you saw last night that excited you, and whether there were any trends that you noticed.
Yeah. I think, first of all, one of the trends that I noticed is that the work that was awarded gold was from all over the globe. And I think that's really exciting to see. And I think as professionals, we can learn from what we're seeing in other cultures and what we're seeing work, and we can be inspired by that. I think another thing that struck me about a lot of the work that won, and of course the Grand Prix went to India Railways for, they turned the ticket system into a lottery to get more people to buy tickets because they were having a problem with people actually purchasing tickets. And I think that campaign, along with a lot of the other gold winners, were really about solving a problem in society. We saw that with, AXA France, and it was a domestic violence campaign, which was fantastic. And so, a lot of what won last night was really, about solving a problem and a societal issue that, is really important to people's lives.
Right. And of course, with the India Railways campaign in particular, solving it through action, not just words, right?
That's right.
Was a product, it was a very sort of high-level behavioral change.
And tapping into the insight that a lot of people in India really love to play the lottery and do that on a regular basis. So combining a ticket purchase with the potential to win a lottery was so insightful, and just tapping into, again, a cultural moment, which we've seen a lot of at Cannes.
Yeah. Was there anything that surprised you?
I think, a couple of the campaigns in terms of, it was a new product launch, or it was, just flooding the market with content. That was the Nutter Butter win. That it was very low spend, and they just flooded flooded TikTok with really crazy, wacky content, and it really spoke to the Gen Z millennial audience, and it created relevance for them, for a brand that maybe hasn't had as much relevance of late. So
yeah, I think based on my conversations with PR people here, the Nutter Butter campaign was the one that they liked the best, right? Yeah. I'm not sure that that it met all the criteria of a Grand Prix winner,
right,
but it was well liked by PR people.
It was well liked by PR people, and I think coming from a corporate background, one of the things that I look for is, did it move the needle from a business standpoint? And I think it actually did. They saw a sales lift. So when I look at the work, and I think that's really important to do when you're at Cannes, there's a lot going on, and you can get caught up in a lot of the sessions that are happening, which are fantastic. But I think as practitioners, we really need to immerse ourselves in the work. And when I look at the work, that is one thing that I look for, is how did this actually, result in a business outcome?
Right. We're going to be meeting with a few other PR agency CEOs later on, and I'm sure this will be a starting point for the conversation. How did you feel about the performance of the PR business in the Gold Lions?
Yeah, it was disappointing to see that there weren't more PR agencies credited with the actual idea. And I think that we've seen that fluctuate over the years. I think as professionals, we need to continue pushing our ideas forward and being very aggressive at the table with those ideas. And we're right for this moment, right? It's all about conversation. It's all about understanding culture, and nobody does that better than we do.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about how you create the kind of culture inside an agency that brings forth big creative ideas. And let's say big creative ideas, not necessarily Lions winning ideas, because those two things are not exactly the same.
Right.
But big, meaningful ideas for clients.
Yes.
And we were talking a little bit about this. I have always felt that creativity in PR is a more collaborative process than it is in advertising. The sort of Don Draper archetype doesn't really transfer to our business, where I think the best creative ideas seem to come out of, conversations among diverse people with different perspectives and different backgrounds and different lived experience.
Absolutely.
But how do you turn that into a culture that consistently produces creative work?
I think that you have to, oftentimes people think that creative just happens, right? It's really important to have the structures and the processes for, within the agency, but also within our clients, to, when a creative idea strikes, to be able to actually implement on it quickly. For us, it's creativity can happen anywhere, and I think exactly what you said. Sometimes the finance person might have a great idea, and I think you need a culture that really listens and allows for that creativity to bubble up from anywhere. And we always say the best idea wins, and it can come from anywhere.
So one of the things that always interests me is you have a number of people with the word creative in their title, right? We had Indy, Chief Creative Officer from the UK, on this podcast earlier in the week. When you create a class within the agency of creative people with that in their title, how do you then make sure that everybody else continues to think of creativity as part of their job? Is that difficult, or are PR people just naturally going to come forth with big, bold, creative ideas?
I think PR people naturally are doing that. I think also the idea is that, again, the idea can come from anywhere, and you need a culture that is collaborative, and you need a culture that is listening, and you need a culture that is respectful of those, those ideas coming from anywhere. And yes, we do have creatives, and that's their main focus. But for us, it's about listening to all the ideas and bringing people together and talking about, why an idea will work, why an idea won't work, and really pushing the boundaries in those conversations to sharpen the idea to be a Cannes-worthy idea.
Yeah, I think one of the interesting things about that is that when we started to create creative departments within PR agencies, which is a relatively new phenomenon, certainly at the scale we're seeing now, our first instinct, or a lot of people's first instinct, was to bring creatives over from advertising. And I don't think that worked as often as we expected it to, because the culture is different. If you're a creative person in an ad agency, it seems to me, you are part of a sort of special exalted class that is different from everybody else. And that's not something culturally that we particularly want, right?
No, I don't think so. Again, I think that one of the things we're seeing, here at Cannes is it's all about being culturally relevant. It's all about conversations. It's all about getting people to opt into your idea and to opt into your brand and to opt in to, to the campaign, if you will. And so I think that, that requires people from all sorts of backgrounds and all sorts of thinking to be able to take that idea and to create something that is uniquely powerful. And again, I think PR people, just by nature of our, how collaborative we are and the work that we do,
and how immersed we are in culture, right?
How immersed we are in culture, and how immersed we are in the business. Yeah.
So it's a confluence of those two things.
Absolutely.
Really understanding the culture, really understanding the business.
Absolutely. Starting with what business problem are we trying to solve?
And actually, just to bring it full circle, that brings us back to the Indian Railways campaign, which, as you said, understood the business well enough to know how to drive sales and understand the culture well enough to understand that Indians would respond.
That's right.
To that kind of incentive.
That's right,
Just
exactly. And
hit
putting those together, and it, created gold, created a Grand Prix, right?
Yeah, great. Thank you.
Thank you.